sexy drag queen, well perhaps you're gay. Is there a point to all these fancy clothes? With all these buckles from your head down to your toes. It's very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Is there something that you're trying to prove? With all the makeup and the way you move, are you looking for some sympathy? No, I'm trying to be the best girl I can be. It's very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Like my martini stride, cosmos I won't deny. Smoke those long cigarettes. Thank God I'm not dead yet. Done all these crazy things, short of a wedding ring. Just love, love, love,
Well, good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Callista Solar, and you're watching nlcTrans. Tonight I'm here with my dear friends and co-hosts, Tara Alexander and Renee Benoit. And tonight, I think we've got a little B-roll for you later.
16 minutes.
16 minutes of B-rolls. But we're also going to talk tonight about Raspberry Pi. We are.
If there's time.
And Tara has brought us a Raspberry Pi that we're going to talk about.
If there's time.
Well, we talked a little bit about Khan Academy last week, and that ties into the Raspberry Pi thing. And you'll all understand what that is in a little bit. But
So now everyone's confused.
so now everybody's
confused
everyone.
everyone.
I've confused everyone. Raspberry Pi is a very clever little thing, and I will let Tara explain that. But we have, like I said, we have some B-roll and we have some stories for you. So various things going on. We actually, I know we had promised you a guest tonight.
Sorry.
And unfortunately, our guest hurt her back, and so we're going to have to postpone that for a future episode. Not sure at this point exactly when that will be, but hopefully we will get that guest on in the future. In the meantime, there are certainly some things going on, and we unfortunately I wasn't able to grab any of the upcoming events, and I don't know if you, Tara, if you were able to grab any. I know there's some things happening, but
Yeah, I'll get that.
But anyway, just a few other things that are going on. I have a little thing, a few things I pulled up here just before we left for the show. Today was a crazy day. It really was. It was just a crazy day. But anyway, here's one that I wanted to share with you, having to do with DOMA. This was the Ninth Circuit dismisses appeal in the Galinsky-DOMA case. The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals dismissed the appeal of a federal district court ruling in the case of Galinsky versus U.S. Office of Personnel Management yesterday, citing the recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling which struck down Section 3 of the so-called Defense of Marriage Act. That's according to Lambda Legal. The challenge was brought by Lambda Legal and law firm Morrison and Forster on behalf of Karen Galinsky, a federal court employee who was denied family health coverage for her spouse, Amy Kanangas. I'm not sure, I'm probably saying that wrong, but what a wonderful day for Karen, her spouse, Amy, and their family. Lambda Legal staff attorney Terry Borelli said in a statement, "While we knew this order was coming after the historic Supreme Court ruling last month, it is nevertheless a huge relief for Karen to know that after a long battle that began 5 years ago, her relationship is respected by the federal government and her family is protected. This order is icing on the case, and we at Lambda Legal could not be more delighted." So that was cool. Not a surprise, but nice. And along those lines, before I hand it over to you and your Raspberry Pi or whatever you're playing with it, I know, you're all wondering what Raspberry Pi is, and we'll get to that.
And
in a
you
second.
pretty much committed us to talking about it instead of the other 40 minutes worth of content we've prepared.
Sorry. Well, you can talk about it just briefly, and we'll get into detail about it later. Anyway, there was this one I wanted to show you. This California Supreme Court again refuses to halt same-sex marriages. The California Supreme Court once again rejected a request from the supporters of Proposition 8 to halt same-sex weddings in the Golden State on Tuesday. This is according to the LA Times. County clerks throughout California will continue to issue marriage licenses to eligible same-sex couples. The denied request came from Ernest J. Dronenberg, a Republican county clerk in San Diego, who filed a petition with the state's highest last week, begging it to halt same-sex marriages because marriage equality was causing him to suffer irreparable injury and damage. I don't understand it either, but Dronenberg argued that the California Supreme Court should order marriage equality to be placed on hold while it considered another petition from the official proponents of California's unconstitutional Prop 8, which claimed that the U.S. Supreme Court's landmark ruling in favor of marriage equality on June 26th should apply only to the two counties where the four plaintiffs reside, Los Angeles and Alameda. Dronenberg's attempt to stall implementation of the High Court's ruling reestablished marriage equality in California follows on the heels of previously rejected request from the supporters of Prop 8 to halt same-sex weddings in the Golden State earlier this month. Attorney General Kamala Harris predicted the state Supreme Court's rejection of Dronenberg's petition shortly after it was filed. The filing offers no new arguments that could deny same-sex couples their constitutionally protected civil rights, she said in a statement issued the same day as Dronenberg's petition. The federal injunction is still in effect, and it requires all 58 counties to perform same-sex marriages, no exceptions. Yay. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure I
Not
understand.
even for those with substantially hurt pride.
Yes, I don't understand the irreparable injury and damage, but okay. Oh my God. Anyway, all right. So on that note, before I get too crazy here,
Did you want to do the out CT stuff, or?
yeah. If I don't actually have that,
I do.
but I will. So I will let you go
So
on.
the OutCT is the organization that got started recently that's trying to plan LGBT-friendly, LGBTQIS, the whole spectrum, including straight, ally, and everything
Sure.
else, friendly events throughout southeastern Connecticut with a focus on trying to do a New London Pride event in 2014. One of the fundraising activities that they have planned is a Ocean Beach Gay Day, and that will be held on Sunday, August 11th, from 11 a.m. until late. That's the official stop time.
Late.
Is late. At Ocean Beach in New London, they say that they have vendors on the boardwalk, family activities. There will be a catered picnic from 1 to 2:30 in Port and Starboard. Live music by Miss T.a.L.L. from Jammin' 107.7. Meet and greet for girls from 3 to 4. A meet and greet for guys from 4 to 5. Live entertainment on the Nautilus deck from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. At 6 p.m. there's a tea dance, and then at dark there's a movie on the beach. The picnic costs $25, and that includes the $20 parking fee that's otherwise charged. But you would need to purchase your tickets ahead of time through PayPal. If you go to outct.org, you can find the link to the PayPal to buy those tickets. It's $60 per family or $25 per person. That includes the $20 parking fee for Ocean Beach. Otherwise, you're certainly welcome to pay the parking fee of $20 and go and participate in all the activities outside of the catered picnic.
All right.
They're also planning, if I scroll here, an International Film Shorts Festival on Saturday, August 24th. and let's see, films by and about gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queers from around the world at Expressions Cultural Centre from 2 to 4:30 on Saturday, August 24th on Bank Street, New London. And then lastly, but not least, we have the scavenger hunt. Save the date, the New London Historic Waterfront District Scavenger Hunt. That will be Saturday, September 21st from 12 to 4 p.m. It will start at the Guard Arts Center and end at O'Neill's Brass Rail. More details to come on outct.org's website. So the big deal right now is the Ocean Beach Gay Day on August 11th. That's a few weeks away. Buy your tickets if you want the catered lunch, catered picnic.
I like Ocean Beach. It's a very nice beach.
It sounds like it's from a song.
It could be. Anyway. So, what else is going on? Anything?
I have some older stuff that we can talk about, but it all depends on where you want to go with this.
Okay.
We have 16 minutes TED Talk about the Khan Academy.
That's very cool. And you should definitely talk a little bit about the
Khan Academy.
Raspberry Pi.
Okay, fine.
Just you have to. I've whetted everybody's appetite. You have to at least explain what
Yeah, it
Raspberry
was supposed
Pi
to be
is.
an at the end of the show thing.
I'm sorry.
So that I could look up the web page while we were watching the video.
Okay, well, if you all
So
sit there with us, we can wait till after.
So the short of it is, this is essentially my Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi is a little computer. It's $35. It was part of an open source project to bring computer technology into education at a very low cost point. It doesn't have lots of the fancy features that your desktop computers have. You get a little SD card, you download an operating system onto the SD card, and the little Raspberry Pi has a micro USB port to plug in for power. That's the same kind of port your phone uses to charge, so the same cable would fit into this. It has a composite video and an audio out. It has an HDMI out, and it has this is a Model B, has an Ethernet connector and 2 USB ports. So obviously there's no hard drive storage. There's a fixed amount of memory on it. You can't do a lot of upgrading on it. But for $35, it puts in the hands of somebody who wants to learn all the basic components for a computing device. And then these pins along the edge here, which you can't really see at that distance, but there's a panel of pins here that you can take and attach other devices to. So you can break this off into an electrical breadboard to do other kinds of electrical projects, or they have several other expansion cards that will fit onto that from other people who, again, this is an open source project, so this has been built to be a generic computer that other people can make components that fit into, and then they don't have to worry about the basics of the computer.
Right.
They can build the specific circuitry to do whatever it is they're looking to do. And there's a platform out there called Arduino, which is like a home controller. It's the kind of controller that you would have sitting as the brains if it was controlling all the lights in your house and, you know, turning them on and off at various different times, the sort of computerized home center thing.
Sure.
And there's an Arduino board. There are several Arduino boards that fit right onto this. There are several project boards that you can buy that let you do different things depending on how you wire them up, that plug in right here. So this becomes the brain of your science project, essentially.
Yeah.
And for $35, what they can do is get them very cheaply. Because it's intended for education, there's a limited number of vendors selling them. In the US, it's Element 14, and I think Amazon.com, you'll also find them. They'll resell from other people. But the reason this ties into the Khan Academy is because there's another nonprofit group that's been taking these with an external hard drive and an external wireless connector off the USB ports and putting on the hard drive the videos, pretty much all of, but most of the videos for the Khan Academy. And in something that's, you know, this big now, you know, here's the computer, and this is roughly the size of those external hard drives. Ship that anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Ship that to any third world country, ship that to any nonprofit that's trying to do education around the world.
So you can essentially put, educational
Educational resources at a very low price point for like $100.
into the hands of people that would not
Otherwise
be able
have
to
access
afford
to
them.
it, right.
It's very cool.
And
It's
so-
a very good idea.
And so the TED Talk that we'll watch about the Khan Academy is about the content of the Khan Academy. And there's no direct link between these. It's just you've got 3 or 4 different open source projects that have come together. Various smart people have brought all the pieces together to make it work. These Raspberry Pis have lots and lots of accessories. Some of them, like the cases, tend to be a little fashionable. Everybody has their own favorite case. One of the things that people often ask is, will it fit in an Altoids can? And the problem is no, because it has square corners. Otherwise, it would fit in an Altoids can. To give you an idea of
But
the
it would
size.
fit in a Band-Aid box.
It would fit in a Band-Aid box. So that's the short of it. The Raspberry Pi, it's Raspberry Pi is the name of it. It's a $35 computer. I'm not involved in the project at all, and I kick myself because I wish I was, because it's a fascinating notion that...
And it potentially could be a really wonderful thing for people, especially in third world nations, that couldn't afford to have these kind of educational resources.
Well, and what it boils down to is, you've got like these new internet-connected TVs and stuff. This is essentially what they're doing. They're essentially taking the brains of one of these, without the battery, without the screen, and it fits on here, except now you're adding all these ports, so it gets a little bit bigger. And that's essentially what they do inside of your TV and stuff. And then this one nonprofit company realized that they could take all of this commodity off-the-shelf stuff, put it together, and make it accessible at a very low price point to education. To be able to get hands-on. There's the constant talk about trying to stimulate the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, the STEM sector of education. And if you could get if you could get one of these for every kid in your classroom, budgets allowing, and a breadboard, and gosh, breadboards are pennies these days. There's a bunch of things you can do, learning the hardware side of it and learning the software side, because it has a standard API. So when you boot up off of your little flash card, there's a standard set of API calls to control the various controller pins and to control the various functions. So you can, even if you don't add anything to it, you can learn how to write a driver for the network. You can learn how to write driver for this or that. You can learn how to write various different pieces of software that would run on Linux, that would interface with the hardware, and encourage or stimulate students that way too.
It's a wonderful little educational device.
I'm enthralled with it, frankly, but that's me. So that's my little Raspberry Pi, and I don't know where you want me to go from there. I hadn't thought this one out.
Well, okay then.
But
it's very cool.
It's very cool, and
it's a
when we watch the
wonderful
video
idea.
for the Khan Academy software, you can keep this kind of thing in mind, that these kinds of tools are out there. I guess that's it, that they are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very cool stuff, and education is so important that it's warms my heart to see that. No, it's a good thing. It really is a good thing.
There we go.
And I know we had talked some time back about the $100 laptop thing, trying to get laptops in the hands of kids. And
OLPC is one laptop per child. I'm pretty sure they're still active. OLPC.org, I believe. One laptop per child started out with the notion of providing an inexpensive, albeit stripped down in functionality, computer that could be shipped out for $100 to pretty much anyone in the world. And the way the program originally worked was you could go to their website and buy a computer for $200. And for every computer that got bought, they sent one out.
One free. Yeah.
So basically, the people who were getting them weren't paying anything. The people who could afford it, so this is wealth redistribution. It's voluntary wealth redistribution. So, and one of my coworkers did that. He went and he bought one for $200. He got his, and they sent one out on his behalf.
Yeah.
So if there was a place looking for 30, then obviously they would wait until 30 people bought laptops, and then they would deliver the 30 laptops. But I believe they've now moved on to 1 tablet per child from the laptop notion. And the laptops were actually very cute. They were monochrome, black and white, so they didn't have color screens, which also meant they didn't need big batteries to run them. They were designed to have like solar and crank connectors to them to recharge the batteries. So you wouldn't have to have even electricity in a lot of these villages. They were designed with 2 little antennas that flipped up from the side of the thing, so it kind of looked like it had ears on it. It kind of, for a kid's educational tool, it did have a camera on it. And what they found, one of the fascinating things is most kids in these third world areas have never seen themselves. They don't know what they look like. There's no mirrors.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So having this laptop, one of the things that it immediately became a social thing, where they wanted to get all their friends on screen at once and look at what they look like. But the really fascinating part was in the software. They were designed to network to each other. So you didn't have to go to some big corporate tower to get your internet. The notion was if somebody had network, and you could talk to them, and someone could talk to you, and someone could talk to them, it would travel from device to device to device until it found a tower to be able to get you on the internet. It was designed to be an active ad hoc network,
Wow.
community network. So they would network with each other until something could link up. And at the very least, they networked with each other very easily. Now, I don't know if that actually got implemented, but that was supposed to be part of the plan, so that the people who were more remote would actually still be able to get there.
It's very cool.
Get to the internet. But yeah, so they've moved on to the 1 tablet per child, and I don't know where they stand with that, honestly.
But it's all very good stuff. Anyway.
So now we're at 20 past,
Yeah,
and
so
we have
we-
16 minutes of
I know.
video.
We have to, well,
Unless you want to skip it.
no, let's watch it.
All
This
right.
is-
We're going to watch our video of the Khan Academy.
Yeah.
Khan Academy is most known for its collection of videos. So before I go any farther, let me show you a little bit of a montage.
So the hypotenuse is now going to be 5. This animal's fossils are only found in this area of South America, a nice clean band here, and this part of Africa. We could integrate over the surface, and the notation usually is a capital sigma. National Assembly, they create the Committee of Public Safety, which sounds like a very nice committee. Notice this is an aldehyde, and it's an alcohol. Start differentiating into effector and memory cells. A galaxy. Hey, there's another galaxy. Oh, look, there's another galaxy. And for dollars is their $30 million plus the $20 million from the American manufacturer. If this does not blow your mind, then you have no emotion.
We now have on the order of 2,200 videos covering everything from basic arithmetic all the way to vector calculus and some of the stuff that you saw up there. We have a million students a month using the site, watching on the order of 100 to 200,000 videos a day. But what we're going to talk about in this is how we're going to the next level. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about really just how I got started. And some of y'all might know, about 5 years ago, I was an analyst at a hedge fund. And I was in Boston, and I was tutoring my cousins in New Orleans remotely. And I started putting the first YouTube videos up really just as kind of a nice to have, just kind of a supplement for my cousins, something that might, give them a refresher or something. And as soon as I put those first YouTube videos up, something interesting happened. Actually, a bunch of interesting things happened. The first was the feedback from my cousins. They told me that they preferred me on YouTube than in person. And once you get over the backhanded nature of that, there was actually something very profound there. They were saying that they preferred the automated version of their cousin to their cousin. At first it's very unintuitive, but when you actually think about it from their point of view, it makes a ton of sense. You have this situation where now they can pause and repeat their cousin. Now they can, without feeling like they're wasting my time. They could, if they have to review something that they should have learned a couple of weeks ago or maybe a couple of years ago, they don't have to be embarrassed and ask their cousin. They can just watch those videos. If they're bored, they can go ahead. They can watch it at their own time, at their own pace. And probably the least appreciated, I guess, aspect of this is the notion that the very first time that you're trying to get your brain around a new concept, the very last thing you need is another human being saying, do you understand this? And that's what was happening with the interaction with my cousins before, and now they could just do it kind of in the intimacy of their own room. The other thing that happened is, I put them on YouTube just for the, I saw no reason to make it private, so I let other people watch it, and then people started stumbling on it, and I started getting some comments and some letters and all sorts of kind of feedback from random people around the world, and these are just a few. This is actually from one of the original calculus videos, and someone wrote just on YouTube, it was a YouTube comment. First time I smiled doing a derivative. And let's pause here. This person did a derivative, and then they smiled. And then in response to that same comment, this is on the thread, you could go on YouTube and look at these comments. Someone else wrote, same thing here. I actually got a natural high and a good mood for the entire day. Since I remember seeing all of this matrix text in class, and here I'm all like, I know Kung Fu. And we got a lot of feedback along those lines. It's clearly it was helping people. But then as the viewership kept growing and kept growing, I started getting letters from people, and it was starting to become clear that it was actually more than just a nice to have. This is just an excerpt from one of those letters. My 12-year-old son has autism and has had a terrible time with math. We have tried everything, viewed everything, bought everything. We stumbled on your video on decimals, and it got through. Then we went on to the dreaded fractions. Again, he got it. We could not believe it. He is so excited. And so you can imagine, here I was, an analyst at a hedge fund. It was very strange for me to do something of social value. I was excited, so I kept going. And then other things started to dawn on me. That not only would it help my cousins right now, or these people who were sending letters, but it could maybe that this content will never go old, that it could help their kids or their grandkids. If Isaac Newton had done YouTube videos on calculus, I wouldn't have to. Assuming he was good. We don't know. The other thing that happened, and even at this point, I said, okay, maybe it's a good supplement, it's good for motivated students, it's good for maybe homeschoolers, but I didn't think it would be something that would somehow penetrate the classroom. But then I started getting letters from teachers. And the teachers would write saying, we've used your videos to flip the classroom. You've given the lectures. So now what we do, and this could actually happen in every classroom in America tomorrow, what I do is I assign the lectures for homework, and what used to be homework, I now have the students doing in the classroom. And I want to pause here for I want to pause here for a second because there's a couple of interesting things. One, when those teachers are doing that, there's the obvious benefit. There's the benefit that now their students can enjoy the videos in the way that my cousins did. They can pause, repeat at their own pace, at their own time. But the more interesting thing, and this is the unintuitive thing when you talk about technology in the classroom, by removing the one-size-fits-all lecture from the classroom and letting students have a self-paced lecture at home, and then when you go to the classroom, letting them do work, having the teacher walk around, having the peers actually be able to interact with each other, these teachers have used technology to humanize the classroom. They took a fundamentally dehumanizing experience, a bunch of 30 kids with their fingers on their lips, not allowed to interact with each other. A teacher, no matter how good, has to give this kind of one-size-fits-all lecture to 30 students, blank faces, slightly antagonistic, and now it's a human experience. Now they're actually interacting with each other. So once the Khan Academy kind of, I quit my job and we turned into a real organization, we're a not-for-profit, the question is, how do we take this to the next level? How do we take what those teachers were doing to their natural conclusion? And so what I'm showing over here, these are actual exercises that I started writing for my cousins. The ones I started were much more primitive. This is a kind of a more competent version of it. But the paradigm here is we'll generate as many questions as you need until you get that concept, until you get 10 in a row. And the Khan Academy videos are there. You get hints, the actual steps for that problem if you don't know how to do it. But the paradigm here, it seems like a very simple thing, 10 in a row, you move on. But it's fundamentally different than what's happening in classrooms right now. In a traditional classroom, you have a couple of homework, lecture, and then you have a snapshot exam. And that exam, whether you get a 70%, an 80%, a 90%, or a 95%, the class moves on to the next topic. And even that 95% student, what was the 5% they didn't know? Maybe they didn't know what happens when you raise something to the 0th power. And then you go build on that in the next concept. That's analogous to, imagine learning to ride a bicycle. And I give you a bicycle, maybe I give you a lecture ahead of time, and I give you that bicycle for 2 weeks, and then I come back after 2 weeks, and I say, well, let's see, you're having trouble taking left turns, you can't quite stop. You're an 80% bicyclist. So I put a big C stamp on your forehead, and then I say, here's a unicycle. But as ridiculous as that sounds, that's exactly what's happening in our classrooms right now. And the idea is, you fast forward and good students start failing algebra all of a sudden and start failing calculus all of a sudden, despite it being smart, despite having good teachers, and it's usually because they had these Swiss cheese gaps that kept building throughout their foundation. So our model is learn math the way you would learn anything, like the way you would learn a bicycle. Stay on that bicycle. Fall off that bicycle. Do it as long as necessary until you have mastery. The traditional model, it penalizes you for experimentation and failure, but it does not expect mastery. We encourage you to experiment. We encourage you to failure, but we do expect mastery. This is just another one of the modules. This is trigonometry. This is shifting and reflecting functions. And they all fit together. We have about 90 of these right now. And you could go to the site right now. It's all free, not trying to sell anything. But the general idea is that they all fit into this knowledge map. That top node right there, that's literally single-digit addition. It's like 1 + 1 is equal to 2. And the paradigm is, once you get 10 in a row on that, then it keeps forwarding you to more and more advanced modules. So if you this is further down the knowledge map, we're getting into more advanced arithmetic. Further down, you start getting into pre-algebra and early algebra. Further down, you start getting into algebra 1, algebra 2, a little bit of pre-calculus. And the idea is from this, we can actually teach everything. Well, everything that can be taught in this type of a framework. So you can imagine, and this is what we are working on, is from this knowledge map, you have logic, you have computer programming, you have grammar, you have genetics, all based off of that core of, okay, if you know this and that, now you're ready for this next concept. Now, that can work well for an individual learner, and I encourage one for you to do it with your kids, but I also encourage everyone in the audience to do it yourself. It'll change what happens at the dinner table. But what we want to do is use the natural conclusion of the flipping of the classroom that those early teachers had emailed me about. And so what I'm showing you here, this is actually data from a pilot in the Los Altos School District, where they took 2 5th grade classes and 2 7th grade classes and completely gutted their old math curriculum. These kids aren't using textbooks, they're not getting one-size-fits-all lectures, they're doing Khan Academy, they're doing that software for roughly half of their math class. And I want to make it clear, we don't view this as the complete math education. What it does is, and this is what's happening in Los Altos, it frees up time. This is the blocking and tackling, making sure you know how to do a system of equations, and it frees up time for the simulations, for the games, for the mechanics, for the robot building, for the estimating how high that hill is based on its shadow. And so the paradigm is the teacher walks in every day, every kid works at their own pace, and a teacher this is actually a live dashboard from Los Altos School District, and they look at this dashboard. Every row is a student. Every column is one of those concepts. Green means the student's already proficient. Blue means that they're working on it, no need to worry. Red means they're stuck. And what the teacher does is literally just says, Let me intervene on the red kids. Or even better, let me get one of the green kids who are already proficient in that concept to be the first line of attack and actually tutor their peer. Now, I kind of come from a very data-centric reality, so we don't want that teacher to even go and intervene and have to ask the kid awkward questions. Oh, what do you not understand, or what do you do understand, and all of the rest. So our paradigm is to really arm the teachers with as much data as possible, really data that in almost any other field is expected if you're in finance or marketing or manufacturing, and so the teachers can actually diagnose what's wrong with the students so that they can make their interaction as productive as possible. So now the teachers know exactly what the students have been up to, how long they've been spending every day, what videos have they been watching, when did they pause the videos, what did they stop watching, what exercises are they using, what have they been focused on. The outer circle shows what the exercises they're focused on, the inner circle shows the videos they're focused on. And the data gets pretty granular, so you can actually see the exact problems that the student got right or wrong. Red is wrong, blue is right. The leftmost question is the first question that the student attempted. They watched the video right over there. And then you could see eventually they were able to get 10 in a row. It's almost like you can almost see them learning over those last 10 problems. They also got faster. The height is how long it took them. So, you know, when you talk about self-paced learning, it makes sense for everyone. You know, in education speak, differentiated learning. But it's kind of crazy what happens when you actually see it in a classroom. Because every time we've done this, in every classroom we've done, over and over again, if you go 5 days into it, there's a group of kids who've raced ahead, and there's a group of kids who are a little bit slower. And in a traditional model, if you did a snapshot assessment, you say, oh, these are the gifted kids, these are the slow kids. Maybe they should be tracked differently. Maybe we should put them in different classes. But when you let every student work at their own pace, and we see it over and over and over again, you see students who took a little bit extra time on one concept or the other, but once they get through that concept, they just race ahead. And so the same kids that you thought were slow 6 weeks ago, you now would think are gifted. And we're seeing it over and over and over again. And it makes you really wonder kind of how much all of the labels, maybe a lot of us have benefited from, were really just due to a coincidence of time. Now, as valuable as something like this is in a district like Los Altos, our goal is to use technology to humanize, not just in Los Altos, but kind of on a global scale, what's happening in education. And actually, that kind of brings an interesting point, is that, you know, a lot of the effort in humanizing the classroom is focused on student-to-teacher ratios. In our mind, the relevant metric is student to valuable human time with the teacher ratio. So in a traditional model, most of the teacher's time is spent doing lectures and grading tests and whatnot. Maybe 5% of their time is actually sitting next to students and actually working with them. Now 100% of their time is. So once again, using technology, not just flipping the classroom, you're humanizing the classroom, I'd argue, by a factor of 5 or 10. And as valuable as it is in Los Altos, imagine what that does to the adult learner who's embarrassed to go back and learn stuff that they should have known before going back to college. Imagine what it does to a street kid in Calcutta who has to help his family during the day, and that's the reason why he or she can't go to school. Now they can spend 2 hours a day and remediate or get up to speed and not feel embarrassed about what they do or don't know. Now imagine what happens where, you know, we talked about the peers teaching each other inside of a classroom, but this is all one system. There's no reason why you can't have that peer-to-peer tutoring beyond that one classroom. Imagine what happens if that student in Calcutta all of a sudden can tutor your son, or your son can tutor that kid in Calcutta. And I think what you'll see emerging is this notion of a global one-world classroom. And that's essentially what we're trying to build. Thank you.
Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. And that's what we've been talking about. Certainly the Khan Academy is very cool. And I know, Renee, you've been playing with it.
Yes, I did a little bit of experimenting the last week or so, and it's really fascinating.
Yeah,
there's a lot of good educational things on there.
Yeah.
But,
and so if anyone's interested, that's KHAN Academy.org to get to to get to the website.
Yeah. And it's a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit. It's and everything's out there for free. You have the option to sign up as somebody who's there to learn. You can also go to the section on coaching if you have friends or family or even just like Big Brother Big Sister setup where you want to have the opportunity to coach kids or people who are going through and struggling. They have a coaching program built into the curriculum.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so that's where the whole Raspberry Pi thing.
So the Raspberry Pi is one nonprofit for education. The Khan Academy is another, and there's a third that basically took the two and put them together and sends these shoebox-sized video servers to classrooms around the world.
Yeah, great stuff.
That's
great
how
idea.
the pieces come together.
Yeah. So. It's really very, very good stuff. And education is so important, and it's something that for a lot of people has been very lacking. And
certainly on paper, and certainly in the conversation, it sounds amazing. It sounds like an incredibly useful idea to flip the classroom, so that the teacher's time is spent working with kids, with people, with students. Specifically on the areas that they're having trouble.
I wish that we
providing that instead of coming back after class or after school for extra help, you have the entire 45 or 50 or 60 or 70, whatever it is. You have basically the entire class time.
Yeah.
And this doesn't mean, as they said, doesn't mean you have to replace your standardized testing or anything like that. But you want to talk about a core curricula if everybody's getting the same source, and then you're getting your in-classroom time. Maybe that's one way where you can actually judge how good a teacher is. I don't know. You start rolling up all these other conversations that we have about education in America, and being 32nd in the world in math or whatnot, and anyway, we don't have enough time left in the show to talk about the big topics.
Yeah, sorry, but it's good. It really is.
I wish I would have had that back in our day.
Well, and as he said, even as a continuing education thing. I mean, I was talking last week about just having watched the video for the Electoral College stuff and learned several things I didn't know. So.
Right.
Yeah. No, and I understand that too. The sort of you want to go back to school and stuff. You want to do things, and it's oh my God, I don't remember any of this stuff. Or you don't remember, really, that's a kind of a thing where, you can go back. I could go back and look at stuff without being embarrassed that I've forgotten all this stuff.
I hate to say it, I suppose, but you could see schools or even employers saying, I want, you need to be able to pass at least this level in the Khan Academy if we're going to take you in.
Yeah.
And then if you are lacking certain things because of the way the prerequisites are built, you can go back and review all that and learn all that up to what you need. And then different starting points don't necessarily become different starting points anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Very cool. Anyway.
You have...
I just had one quick thing here I wanted to read to you. This was actually about Pennsylvania. Completely off the subject, but anyway, just something that I picked up off of the Advocate. This was same-sex marriage licenses in Pennsylvania. This was licenses being issued. Lorraine Bloodgood and Alicia Teresi have become the first same-sex couple in Pennsylvania to be issued a marriage license, according to CBS Philly. Despite the fact that a state constitutional amendment forbids same-sex marriage, Montgomery County officials announced earlier this week that they would issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples who showed up at the Register of Wills. That's interesting. But anyway, today the county's Register of Wills, D. Bruce Hans, made good on that promise, saying he wanted to come down on the right side of history and the law. We're no different than anybody else. Finally, it's recognized. Jersey told CBS Philly. It doesn't make any difference to us. Nothing is going to change, but now we're going to have a piece of paper so everybody else recognizes. Another lesbian couple was scheduled to apply for the state's first same-sex marriage license earlier this week, but changed their minds after meeting with the American Civil Liberties Union of Pennsylvania on Tuesday. The ACLU is currently challenging the state's prohibition on marriage equality in court. So I thought that was cute. They're going to issue their licenses
In spite.
in spite, because we want to come down on the right side of history and the right side of the law. I thought that was kind of...
Yes.
I liked it. So times they are changing.
Well, and along those lines, then, this is something I've had with me for the last couple weeks, but we haven't gotten to. So unless you have something, I'll dive into
Nope.
this.
Feel free. I'll drink coffee. I'm good at that.
We will often get, well, I should say, as transsexuals, we often run into misunderstanding of what gender identity is compared to sexual orientation.
Sure.
You've said at many of our panels that the word transsexual has sex in it, so people tend to think about sex.
Yeah.
And it's not, which is, it's a gender identity issue. It's a question of who you are, not who you're attracted to. And so then the questions frequently come up, well, if lesbian, gay, and bisexual is all sex-related, to whom are you attracted? And transgender is identity, who you are. Why do they get lumped together?
Yeah.
And so I have to thank Bryn Tannehill for having posted an article about why the LGB and the T belong together.
Okay.
Bryn writes in this article, as an analyst, historical data is often important because it helps answer the question, how did we get here? However, this eventually becomes less important than determining where are we and how we got there. This is exactly the mindset most LGBT millennials when it comes to civil rights and advocacy. A lot of transgender leaders are trying to revive old grievances. Things get cited as proof that the LGBT leadership has it in for the transgender community, and it may or may not have actually been said. These historical reasons typically cited for the division between LGBT and T have become just that, history. Certainly, I believe it's she, Bryn, certainly do not speak for everyone, but from the perspective of millennials who are educated, diverse, and looking for the bottom line up front, LGBT and T have more experiences, goals, and obstacles in common than not. And there are 10 enumerated here. Should have enough time.
Yeah.
The first, we all violate gender norms. LGBT people break one of the most fundamental stereotypes and expectations of gender, namely, women should fall in love with men and men should fall in love with women. Transgender people violate other gender stereotypes, sometimes including who you're supposed to fall in love with and marry. At some point in their lives, many transgender people will either be seen as LGBT by others or see themselves as LGBT, or may be LGBT in addition to T.
Right.
2, sociologists categorize all of us as sexual minorities. One of the consequences of this is a phenomenon known as minority stress, which affects the LGBT and the T communities equally. Minority stress includes both external, aka rejection, prejudice, discrimination, and internal, concealment of one's minority identity, vigilance and anxiety about prejudice, stressors, which lead to a lower quality of life along multiple axes. 3, familial rejection is a common theme, and the number of trans foster kids in Dayton, Ohio's PFLAG is a stark testament to it. The LGBT youth constitute 40% of America's homeless teens. The same reasons that underlie LGBT kids being homeless are the same ones that are making trans kids homeless. 4, as part of coming to the point of self-acceptance, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people usually go through similar processes of denial, awakening, and eventually, hopefully, self-acceptance. 5, coming out is a rite of passage for virtually everyone within the community. We all experience fear, pain, the isolation, the good and the bad surprises along the way. These are stories that we share and empathize with. When I described coming out to my wife to a gay man, it affected him deeply because he has done the same thing with his wife several years earlier. In the end, most of us lose people along the way and carry those scars as a mutual burden. 6, we're still locked in a struggle with the psychiatric community. While DSM-5 is a step in the right direction for transgender community, and the lesbian, gay, bisexual community fought a lot of these battles 40 years ago, the truth is we're still fighting it. NARTH, which I forget what it stands for, is still out there, and there are still people advocating reparative therapy. It's decreasing, including some who are on the board of the American Psychiatric Association. 7, marriage equality is an issue that belongs to all of us. The laws pertaining to the legality of transgender marriages are still an incoherent hodgepodge that leaves many trans people subject to having their marriages nullified with no warning. The only way past this is with marriage equality and ending DOMA. 8, we still face discrimination and lack protection at work, which is the inclusive ENDA that we're looking at. 9, millennials, even those who identify as LGBT, are much more comfortable with the idea of gender fluidity and a big tent with LGBTQIAS+. And 10, we must all hang together or we shall assuredly hang separately. The religious groups spreading hate towards us don't discriminate between the LGB and the T, and we're all on the wrong side of God in their eyes. When a trans man friend of mine was assaulted last weekend, the people doing it didn't really care whether he was technically classified as a lesbian or a trans man. Morally, we all have an obligation to oppose oppression. We're on the leading edge of a cultural shift. The demographics and values of the millennial generation is driving force behind it. Leaders of all stripes need to recognize that this generation will be the base for a very long time. The old mental calculus that trans inclusion is divisive does not hold true any longer for the 30 and under crowd.
Amen. Very cool. And on that note, we are actually out of time. So, so anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will be back with you again next week. Bye-bye.